Okay, so it's 5:35 on November 10th. Is that right? And I call the meeting to order for the Catamount Community Forest. And let's see, is there any public comment? Don't see anybody here from the public, so I think we can move on to the approval of the minutes from October 13th. Give folks a few minutes to read those over.
I thought they were very thorough. I saw them earlier today.
Right, yes, and this was Matt, right? Matt was running the meeting, so yeah, so that was great.
I read them too. I was fine with them at times.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve them, or do we have to wait for everybody to read them?
Does anybody need any more time to read them?
They're gone.
Okay, so Hans made a motion to, and there was no amendment, so
I'll second that.
second that, okay, and is there any further discussion? Okay, if there's none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And any abstentions? Okay, Jeff, you're muted, but I think
One abstention, because I wasn't present at the meeting.
okay, so the minutes have been approved for October 13th as written. Okay, so I guess I'll sit there.
Yep, we can move on to the next item.
So next, so we'll start on the agenda. So the next item on the agenda is the Catamount Community Forest operating and capital budgets. Simon will bring those up on screen there.
So I've just, the amount stays the same as last year for the operating budget. There's obviously funds to spend on things that aren't capital improvements. So what you have there is what was agreed for the FY23 budget this time last year. I think generally we've been keeping to that more or less. So really it's sort of just rolling it over for the FY24. I put in some suggestions. I think this is really, it's an amount to guide us when we're making decisions next year, and guide me in particular about what the committee thinks we should be spending the money on. So that it's not like totally hard and fast, but it does help guide that expenditure. So, you know, brush hogging is something we do every year. Invasive species the same. I've put in a suggested amount for the EAB management because we treated those in, I think, June 22. It says every 2 to 3 years, and given that we've named one of them Big Jim, I don't think we can afford for any of these trees to die from EAB. And then sort of miscellaneous expenses to do with things like signs, and we're probably going to need to spend some money on outreach as well with the various projects we have going.
And that's, I see you moved a little extra into the brush hogging, which is good because Eric's hourly rate went up a little bit, but he got larger machines, and so he's able to cover more areas. So it's actually works out well. But
Yeah.
That's good. And so we did the EAB this past year. Right? This
So
2020.
yeah, 2022. So by the time it's 2 years, it will be FY
It'll be time.
24. That makes sense.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, good.
Hey,
Okay.
we
is
had said
any-
we had said last time like $5,000 a year. Ethan thought we need to keep invasive under control. This is invasive is only 1,000. Are we getting money from elsewhere to maintain? And this year we had approved last time like 3,000. So this 1,000 feels low. Does the other 4,000 that we need to get to Ethan's recommended level come from somewhere else?
So it will have to. So this year with this and volunteer work and Terry's request to the stewardship fund, we've got up to about $5,000 worth of work. Next year, I think we've got this $1,000. We're probably going to have more invasive work by Laura Meyer, and maybe Ethan will do some himself. And there's some other of the logging revenue. You know, I think Ethan's hopeful there'll be some left over to spend on a bit of invasive treatment. I don't think we can ask for an increase in the operational budget to accommodate that amount every year. And I know Ethan has been working hard on this because he's been reaching out to John. Let me and Terry know that an opportunity for funding from the federal government from invasive management that we previously thought wasn't available to us because we're on public land might actually be available through some loophole that involves the outdoor family centre applying for it. So we were gonna, that's sort of early stages, and I think we were gonna talk to John about the ins and outs of that and see whether we can take advantage of that scheme.
Okay, that makes sense. So we only have 1,000 here, and then each year we sort of have to get creative to get up to like an equivalent 5,000 level. I also thought like that to get up to 5,000, we have the power line, Velco. Like we got them to do some amount of invasive treatment. So maybe we could kind of consider that towards the 5,000 next year too. Like if we're trying to add up in our
Right.
minds to some level.
Because that definitely, there's a lot of invasives on that power line strip. So the, you know, it will go, the stewardship fund request will be going to the select board in maybe the next month or two,
I hope so.
3 years, but whatever.
Across Derek.
Right, but
Yeah.
it won't be happening till August, next August anyway. But so we have a little bit of time to work on it. So that's 3,000. And then what Simon was just talking about, what Ethan had found that there was an opportunity for the outdoor center to apply. Are folks familiar with NRCS?
No.
Yeah, and NRCS is, Jeff, maybe you can, oh, I see you have your hand up, Jeff. Natural resources.
Conservation
Conservation
service.
Service, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And they have a program called EQIP. And they do funding with for invasive. So that's where that hopefully will come for next year. So Jeff, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, a couple things about the budget. Sorry. The first is the categories that we have listed. I wonder if there are other items that should be on there, such as forest management that Hans brought up. We may not fund it in a year, but it should still be part of what we look at when we're considering the budget. So I think it should be there. It sounds like next year we're hoping the select board will agree to put 3,000 to allow 3,000 of the stewardship fund to be used for that. The trouble with the stewardship fund is it's a set amount, and I don't believe we have a source of revenue that replenishes that fund. Maybe I'm wrong about that. My point being is we have, I believe, this is my opinion, we need to be convincing Eric and the select board that if we're going to be properly managing this community forest, we need to have the right budget to do it. And I don't think what we are, the 3,000 that we currently have or are requesting is sufficient. Does that all make sense?
Sure, I don't have any problems with asking for more. I mean, but it, it does, forest management, are you thinking along the lines of road improvements and invasives? I mean, it's other than invasives and the EAB management?
I honestly don't know, Terry, to be honest, exactly what should be in that. And then again, in some years, it may be very little. In other years, we may have something more major. Now, that may fall into more of a capital project. But I'm just concerned that we're kind of underselling our needs to properly manage, for lack of better words, the property, the forest.
And, the other thing too is if we don't use it, it goes back into the budget, the general fund, right?
Yes. I mean, that's usually a good news story. I mean,
It doesn't always happen, yeah.
right. At least from the financial picture side of things.
I see John has his hand up. Hope you're on mute.
There you go.
There you go.
Thank you, Terry. I wanted to just say that we were ready to apply this year for the grant money, but it was determined that we should wait. We're happy to do that in a more refined way for the next round, and then also to back up what Jeff's saying. I think that even if we show that we're trying to get the funding from some other place, we should show how much we're trying to spend every year. If we're going to spend 5,000 on invasive species management, it should show in our budget. And if we are only asking the town for 1,000 of that, we should show where the other 4,000 is
Right.
hopefully going to come from, because this is what we're trying to spend it on. And but I agree that 3,000 seems very low to ask from the town for this. So, I'm not looking to boost my salary from this. This is directly to the forest. So, just to back up what Jeff was saying and try to find a better way to show this budget to the reality.
So, I wouldn't, we could put in for maybe 5,000, maybe boost up the invasive species to 2,000, and then we would be getting the 3,000 from the stewardship fund. And I just wanted to answer, Jeff, your question about where would the money be replaced? How would that be replaced into the stewardship fund? That would come from the revenues from the forest management. That's going to be happening. So that will be replaced. Ethan's pretty confident.
Okay. Great. That's good news. We still ought to be trying to track what we think is available through the stewardship fund versus our needs versus what thus, when there's a difference, what we need to ask the select board to include in the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass this on with a suggestion that it's increased to 5,000, 1,000 extra for invasives, and 1,000 extra for an additional category labeled forest management. Is that what we're thinking?
I think that probably might cover, cover other things miscellaneous, but also just for forest management. There might be things like, I know Ethan likes to have plants grow back just on their own, but we could, plant native plants at Catamount, things like that. So what do folks think about that? To increase it to 5,000 and.
Well, I mean, I think, so I like what John was saying, like we need to have expenses and then we need to have sources of revenue. So like we should show all the expenses of what we anticipate spending. And then we need a few rows on this that are representing the revenue. So, source of revenue, town funding for this budget, whatever, 5,000, if we're asking for 5,000. But then if we expect to get money from elsewhere next year, then we should have another row spreadsheet that's another source of revenue. And then add it up to say total revenue. And then we'll have all the other expenses add up to say total expense. I guess the two should equal each other. So it's sort of two independent things. So when you say increase it to 5,000, are we increasing the total of the expenses we plan to have to 5,000, or are we increasing the request from the town to 5,000, or both? But I guess,
That would only
Simon, do you
be-
see what I'm, like, how to update it with
Yeah.
sources of revenue too?
Yeah, so this is only what we're requesting from the town.
Yeah,
We don't really have any other sources of revenue. I think, Ethan will probably get some money from the forestry management.
Well, I thought we were planning to get 3,000 from that stewardship fund the next year, right?
That'll be
And that-
spent this financial year.
Okay.
I think.
It'll be spent during the fiscal, oh no, I guess we're in 23, right,
Yeah.
right now? So it would be spent 24.
Okay.
In the 24. I'm hoping we're gonna get it. I don't see why we wouldn't. We wrote up a letter and then Ethan added some additional information to present to the select board. But I think the revenue is, like you said, Simon, this is money we're asking the town to use to keep the forest managed, the Catamount Outdoor Family Center, or the Catamount Community Forest. So I don't think we have to offset it with revenue.
So I think for the purposes of what we're like almost going back to the town with, they want to know how much money we're asking of them. That's what they want to know. We can create our own sort of internal spreadsheet, if you like.
Yeah,
Along
good
the
idea.
lines of what Hans has suggested. And that way, I guess it looks like, well, it is, we're sort of fiscally planning to a greater extent.
So,
These aren't big sums, so whether that's challenging.
so would you, Jeff, does that sound like a good figure, $5,000 to
yeah,
go with? Yeah,
Yeah.
and that,
and a piece of this is selling to the select board that, now that we have this forest, we need to consider, we need to understand what it costs to maintain it. And that our budget needs to reflect that budget that includes all our expenditures as well as our sources of revenue,
Reed, I'm sorry, I'm just getting used to this hand thing.
yeah.
So go ahead, Reed.
No, so first, I agree with increasing the budget, and I understand what we're presenting is what we're asking for the town, but I agree with Hans that at least internally, we should have a balance sheet of, maybe our total expenses are twice that, but we should show, at least so we keep track of it, what our revenue stream is, whether it's grants or other donations from people or cookie sales, so we should keep track of that. And as far as the stewardship fund, I'm still beginning to understand how that works, but it seems like that is something that we shouldn't rely on taking money from every year unless we have a mechanism of replenishing it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It's there to use for things like this, invasives or projects.
Projects and, emergency work.
right.
something
So, but if,
happened.
right. So
Um,
we take, but 20,000 can go disappear pretty quickly. So we need to look at projecting how we put that money back is my thought.
Actually,
Is that-
10,000 has to stay in there.
So 10,000 will disappear very quickly then if you have to leave 10. Yeah.
Could be, yeah. I mean, if there was a catastrophic weather event
Mhm.
that took down trees or, but most likely that would result in some revenue because
Mhm.
of if, Mother Nature knocked down all these trees, they would be harvested and, sent to market.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
right.
So, yeah, I guess, that would be something we can do. I mean, for next year, for the 2024 budget, we would say revenue, I guess, $3,000, even though we have to pay it back. I'm not sure at all what the EQIP program would provide. I don't know if that's thousands of dollars, or Ethan didn't really give any.
He seemed to be very excited about it, which made me think it would make a significant dent.
Okay,
That's his problem.
so maybe 3,000. I mean, is that a?
I got the impression it would be more than that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we can, that isn't a bad idea to keep track of it, but there's just not a, I don't know how many cookie sales you want to have, but I don't know if we can kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Expect that we're going to have revenue every year. The forest management project is going to be in 2024. There's not another forest management project till 26.
I think so, something like that.
Yeah, 26 or something. So I don't see a lot of revenue from the forest really, other than the stewardship fund. And I mean, as a committee, I guess we could work on different ways to do fundraising, but I don't know if that's something folks are interested in.
I was being a little facetious about cookie sales. Yes.
No, I mean, yeah.
So I'll look at that, and then we'll send it off to Eric.
So do we have to vote on this to increase, or?
I don't think so.
Okay. And then the capital budget, that's a little bit more involved. So could you pull up that sheet, because that's pretty involved.
So these 5 projects are the capital budget, so they should each be $10,000 or more. They are the same as last year. So developing a new trail across Government Children Road to the southern parcel, upgrading of the stream crossing structures, sheep barn renovation, and trail restoration after forest management. So at the moment, as things stand, we have almost $18,000 in the capital fund. We've got sort of 12,000 coming online for each of the next 3 years, and I would guess that that'll be increased sort of as part of this budget process to maintain that flow, to keep us on a good keel. So I think the projects for 2024 are the stream crossings and then the trail restoration after forest management, which collectively total $20,000 worth of work in there. And then following that, I think earlier today I spotted some errors in my first attempt at a capital budget. So I think this access trail is going to have to be 2025 based on the availability of funds. And then lastly, the sheep barn renovation, which I think we're suggesting should be discussed as part of the budgeting process with the select board. It was previously in the capital budget as a $100,000 item, but there was no real sort of funding attached to it, if you like. Obviously, a 6-year horizon for a $100,000 project means we should be having $17,000 a year put in this budget for that, and we clearly don't. So I think that's a bigger discussion about what the use is for that building. We've talked about it informally and we can't come up with anything to explain to the select board. They need to be aware of this as to why we're suggesting we spend $100,000 on this building? Do they want to spend $100,000 on this building?
And I think what we talked about, I think a couple of months ago was that really the most obvious, the most obvious use for that building, that barn, is for the outdoor center, for storage for their equipment, I guess would be the most obvious. I don't, I talked about maybe putting a, rooms, a place for meetings or events, things, maybe like a little museum for the, outdoor center, things like that. But, with everything with the handicap accessibility and, plumbing and things, it just seems like wouldn't be. So,
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're not going to discover a use for that building at this meeting.
right,
It was really just to tell you that I think that's what we as staff think we should be suggesting to, rather than just having this sitting in the capital budget
right.
and everyone patting themselves on the back and go, great, we're taking care of that, even though we're not spending any money on it. Maybe we should actually bring it out into the open a little bit more about what is the future of this building.
Mhm.
And I know that the Outdoor Family Centre are doing their own sort of space planning initiative tied up with their leasing and colours. So it may or may not tie into that. I'm pretty sure it won't tie into it, but you never know.
Right, but the outdoor center will still need a place to store the equipment, I guess. Is that right, John? And Hans?
Yeah, I mean, we currently have the stuff in there now. We assume we can continue to keep the four-wheeler and snowmobile, John. Other stuff.
And mower, I mean, there is a very useful space in there right now. If it came down to us finding a useful space that was a lot less expensive to maintain, we could do that. But I think the town needs to provide the guidance on that one. We'll keep using it as it is right now, but we beyond that, I don't know what else we can really do in it.
And I think that was Melinda had the Lathrop, can't remember his first name, Lathrop, do that initial assessment, and that was just one quote. So, might be possible to get another quote, see if there's another possibility. So, but I think that's down the road. I think we don't really need to figure that out now, but it is a good idea to, we need to have some vision, whether it's going to be used or not. So. Okay. And the trail restoration should be, Ethan will be doing the forest management in the 24-25 fiscal year. So if that money needs to be used at that time, it will be used at that point, but
it's
after
in
that.
there and it's available.
Right. Yeah, it's a little, I remember when I first saw this capital improvement program budget, it was very confusing, and it still is a little bit.
Yeah, I know what you mean. In preparing for this meeting, I've already discovered a mistake I've made in it. I've got to change. So I'll do that.
And how is, just while we're on this, have we looked into the stream crossing, the bridges?
I've looked into it, but I need to prioritize it more. I acknowledge that.
And that'll be
Yeah.
springtime, that would be.
It would be a date agreed with the Outdoor Family Centre. I'm assuming not during the camps, would be their preference.
Simon, we're happy to help guide, lead that process if need be, because that's
John?
on our priority list.
Okay, are there any more questions about the capital improvement? I think there's a pretty good, the 4 items that are listed up on the top are really things that are kind of what we're focusing on, in the next 4 years or 3-4 years. Everybody good? Okay.
Okay.
Great. Okay, so next up is the annual report, and Simon has done a
So
draft there.
always a fun exercise, trying to remember what you did 18 months ago. So this is the report, which I drafted based on input from the committee back in the summer. So you probably don't need to worry about the first 2 paragraphs. They're general blurb that goes in every single report. So I think maybe if we can just nail this tonight, if we spend 10-15 minutes on it, maybe if we can just all, I don't know if people have had a chance to read through it. It's only a page. So maybe we could spend a bit of time reading it now and then it's done. This is my preference.
So do folks need a few minutes to read this over?
I read it earlier today and thought it's, I'm not sure if it's all inclusive, that other people may have other things, but the pieces I remember, I think it's very well written.
Yeah, I read it earlier. I keyed in on seeing the stuff for the outdoor family center, and I thought it seemed complete. I don't know if you copied forward what we had from last year, Simon, or did maybe Amanda wrote that?
Amanda sent me something updated.
Okay, good. They look good.
And I read through it. It's very thorough. All this is what we've been working on and the outdoor center. So I think it's really good.
Just one minor thing I found, very minor. I'm on the 3rd paragraph. And the first sentence says the non-forested areas of Catamount, particularly grasslands, are being managed for birds. And I'm wondering if we are being managed as bird habitat.
That sounds good. For birds, for the habitat.
Made that change. There's just a couple of points I want to make. It's that in reference to some of the comments that were made previously, which is that I didn't include the sheep barn assessment and cabling because that was done in the last financial year. The same with brontosaurus work that Ethan did, which was also FY21, and then lastly the archaeological assessment was also done then. So if you're wondering where those items are, they were done in the preceding financial year.
Okay, so any more? Oh, Jeff, you have your hand
Oh,
up.
I'm sorry, I forgot to put it down.
Oh, okay. There you go. So I think it's great. I think it's really, covers everything that has happened at the Catamount Community Forest. And I think I would give it a thumbs up vote to send it off to be put into this is for the town report. So.
Reed's got his hand up.
Yeah.
Oh, Reed, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, just one minor thing I realized there on the duck boxes. So in fall 2021, spring 22, 2 duck boxes were installed. That's correct. And it's one additional is anticipated to be installed in fall 2022 because we only budgeted for 3 altogether. Which by the way went in last week or the week before. So thank you.
Okay.
Any more comments? Okay, I think we're all good. So thank you, Simon, for putting that together. Great. Okay, so we're a little ahead of time, which is nice. So the Catamount Outdoor Family Center license update.
Yep. Okay, so the license, so background, we talked about this back in the tail end of the summer. So I've been working on it with staff here Sort of, we met briefly with the Outdoor Family Centre to discuss their provisional comments. We also took it to you guys and the Williston Conservation Commission. Ethan Tapper made some comments, and we also had staff comments. It took me a while to corral everyone, but we did manage to get it over to the family centre last week, I think. I think the plan is they're going to look at it with their board and come back to us with any changes or suggestions or points of discussion. And then I think Eric Wells is keen to try and get it to the select board for a provisional once over in early December. So what you guys, just as a reminder, I think in summary, the points that you guys made at the previous meeting, in no particular order, were that should try and ensure that any new structures that are put up are not spread across the site too much. I think we recommended a 10-year license instead of 5, but there was a suggestion that the select board might feel they could go up to 15 or not, as the case may be. I think we wanted to make sure that the Outdoor Family Centre notified us well in advance if they're not intending to renew. There's a lot of discussion about the parking lot, the intention that it shouldn't be chained off from for public use, consistent with our ability as a town to sort of manage that and liability. If that's something that staff didn't feel was able, I think we were after sort of clearer guidance about when it can and can't be shut. And then lastly, I think there was a discussion prompted by the McCullers letter about sort of discounted gear that I think we felt might be better addressed by the town or others, volunteers sort of outside of the license agreement. So things like snowshoes being available for people who can't afford it or whatever the case may be. So I'm probably I'll tell you the changes that have been made. I don't really want to sort of do this by committee in terms of drafting it, but I think it's good to bring you up to speed on where things sort of stand. So sort of some of the key changes are referencing the Outdoor Family Centre discretionary permit for their use, which has been granted since the previous license was agreed. Sort of in there, we do have the 10-year lease suggested to the select board, along with a request that they basically tell us, don't leave it to the last day to tell us if they're not going to renew. So we've got a chance to find someone else. There's some information in here that I think both town staff and the Outdoor Family Centre felt it was desirable to try and monitor trail usage. I know there's been some feedback about practicalities of that from members of the committee, but it's something that we're keen on as staff to try and make sure we do understand how many people best we can are using this forest. And I know that the licensee Outdoor Family Centre are keen to try and make sure people sign their document where possible. So we'd like to sort of have that referenced in here as something that we're keen to do. There's some clarity in there just about the types of uses that are permitted. So this is in respect to the fact that it is an outdoor recreational centre, and to make sure that we understand that if we are going to look at alternative uses that aren't related to that, the proper venue for discussing that is going to be through an update to the forest management plan. So just to give the public a chance to sort of weigh in on it and consider how that affects things like conservation easement and things like that. Moving on. We have the temporary events, subject to a lot of discussion. I dare say Amanda's going to be poring over this in detail. But what we've tried to do here is provide more flexibility for getting out the event schedule. I think it just didn't work for the outdoor family centre because the timings were such that they weren't able to get us events. So we tried to sort of increase the time that they've got to do that till sort of the early March, but still make sure that we're aware of what's happening, but also provide flexibility for those events where they don't have precise dates. We've included some guidance about what is what requires a temporary event permit. So to differentiate them from average person who wants to hold an event, recognizing the fact that they have a discretionary permit as an outdoor recreational centre, to try and provide some parameters to help in the administration of that. I think the outdoor family centre are finding it difficult to navigate that process with people who are requesting things. So we put some guidelines in there which relate it back to the discretionary permit, and anything that sort of exceeds that, or sort of results in a lot of people being on there at night or overnight camping, or that involves a massive tent, doesn't need a permit. A little bit of information from the fire department there. Always keen to make sure we minimise the risk of fires. I think there was some guidance about trail closure. So previously, the sort of trail closure was really to do with the town, but I think we're sort of designating outdoor family centre to be the people we trust to run this facility. So we felt appropriate to make sure that it's spelled out here that they can close the trails and the circumstances in which they can do so, which is basically abuse or denigration of the trails, and also if there's sort of emergency measures that need to be undertaken, a tree's down or something like that. But then they're also notifying us when they've done that. So there's some information there. This is received from Ethan about structuring the forest management areas to try and I think make that more closely aligned with now that he's developed the forest management plan in his head, and also I think to try and get to a stage where we understand that the trails are going to be improved back to a comparable condition and what they are. And I think that's going to involve quite a lot of work with Ethan and the Outdoor Family Centre to document those trails before he starts work. Stuff that I would love to get out of here, which is about the town's ability to hold events at the property, which, given that both Ethan and you do your bird walks there, and Laura does invasive works, and there's never any problem, seems a lot of verbiage to cover that. And then we still have the ability to control where structures are sited on the property. So this is something that's actually still in there from the previous iteration. So any structures that do go on need to have our approval to go in. And then lastly, the parking lot discussion. So we spent a bit of time discussing this. The first element relates to clarifying the responsibilities in terms of maintenance of the parking lot. So we, the town, are responsible for sort of keeping it in good condition in terms of making repairs to potholes and things like that, and making sure we discuss that with the Outdoor Family Centre on a regular basis. And then Bruce was very keen to make sure that we ensure that no salt is used on the parking lot, which I think everyone probably agrees is a good idea, having Googled it after he told me about what happens if you salt a gravel road. So the second element is that I think we did have a discussion, and I think at this time we're not able to take on sort of responsibility for ensuring that the parking lot remains open at all times. from a liability point of view, and DPW having the ability to go in there and sort of maintain it. But I think we're cognizant of the fact that we want to make sure it's open whenever it possibly can be. So to that sort of effect, we've put in here that we in the Outdoor Family Centre both agree it's in our interest to make sure it's open whenever it possibly can be, consistent with public safety and keeping the trail network in good condition. And then following on from that, we've included some wording there, which is that does allow the Catamount Centre to close the parking lot in some limited circumstances. So it's always with our agreement. And again, I'd sort of reiterate that, you know, the Outdoor Family Centre, the people on the ground making the day-to-day decisions, they know the trails best, they know the parking lot best. We trust them to do this well. So two reasons, if, you know, I think one, Hans might have made this point earlier, whereas I think it might be during the spring thaw, and the parking lot became a skating rink, which is one of the reasons they shut it. So that would be, you know, if it is very dangerous in there. The second would be if we had some sort of, you know, major thaw, and the trails were, you know, widespread muddiness, and, you know, we are placing the burden on the Outdoor Family Centre to maintain this trail network. And I think we have to trust their judgment to a certain extent, to know when it's best to make sure all those trails are closed. And the practicalities are that I think closing the parking lot might be necessary sometimes, but they do need to know, they do need to notify us when they're doing that and get our agreement to it. So they will need to notify me, and I think this is going to be sort of self-policing to a certain extent. Sort of separate to that, you know, if the town does make a decision, so a group of citizens decide they do want to have a parking lot on Governor Chittenden Road, we can, you know, the license is going to provide us with the ability to go back in and talk to the Outdoor Family Centre about that, and we negotiate that. And something that the town manager's department pointed out to me at the moment, which is that on a separate track, we have an amendment to the traffic ordinance for the town going through at the moment. And one of the things in that ordinance is signing no parking on one side of Governor Chittenden Road. So that's something that might be coming through in the near future. And that would make sure that in the event, you know, someone does park on Governor Chittenden Road, emergency access will always be maintained.
So just one side of the road.
Yeah, one side. Yeah. I think it's going to be the south side, which makes sense because that's where the view is. So that's sort of it. That was a lot of me talking. So I don't know if anyone has any comments on that at this stage.
No.
And so where is this in the process? This is, you worked with the outdoor center? and
So
the
I've
staff?
worked, this does not have the Outdoor Family Centre's comments on it yet. So this is just a preview on what we suggested to them. They're going to come back with their comments. And also, you know, we need to check for the select board.
Okay,
is
these are
amenable
staff
to this.
notes.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sounds good. I know that the closure of the parking lot probably is not going to happen too often. It didn't happen too much last year, and there are just, I mentioned earlier, I think last meeting, is that some folks do actually use the parking lot just to walk on the road. Yeah, so that seems, and what people do is, because you can't bring your dog there, they actually park in the parking lot and take their dog for a walk on the road. I saw that just recently, so.
yeah, I saw about 3 people do that when they were sitting outside with John and Peter
Yeah.
the other day. So
Mhm.
I didn't realise that was such a major use of the parking lot.
Right. So maybe try to accommodate them somehow, you know, folks that do use that. Okay, any comments or suggestions?
No.
Yeah, to agree.
No.
Okay, and I guess it'll go to the outdoor center, they'll add their comments and will it come back to us again to review or then just off to the select board?
I think we will go to the select board. I think we'll get their comments. I'm not really very familiar with the select board, so I don't know to what extent they'll dig into this.
Okay.
You know, if they feel it needs to come back to us, then they will suggest that. I think we've incorporated the committee's comments where possible.
It was quite a long process, Jeff, wasn't it?
Oh,
first time around.
the first time around, of course, I can't predict 100% what would happen, but most likely the select board will rely heavily on staff's, town staff's input and guidance. You know, unless, and also staff's pointing out anything that might be controversial or the select board should know about. I doubt there is. So I don't know what else I can add to that.
Okay, so we'll just wait for it to go through the steps and but those are good.
And Simon, I assume the town attorney will take a look at it too.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think both the current version has not been reviewed by the attorney.
Yeah.
So it will need to be reviewed by ours and presumably the outdoor family centers as well.
I can't figure out how to raise my hand in Zoom, so I'm raising my hand.
That doesn't
That works
count.
too.
Figured it out, you can do it.
How did we end up with 10 instead of 15 years? That was one thing I missed.
So I think the committee at the previous meetings suggested 10, but that was what they were comfortable with. But I guess wouldn't object to the select board if the select board felt going up to 15.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if does that make sense. So we sort of followed what the committee was comfortable with. So I guess my assumption is that the outdoor family centre will be at the select board discussion.
Yeah, okay.
And
And then my other comment was just, this is awesome that it's this far along, and thank you for the work to get everybody's input corralled, Simon, and get us to this point. So it's nice to get this out of the way and done before it gets too close and we're scrambling.
and to give a chance to be an attorney for a limited amount of time.
No, that's great. That's a lot of work, going through, getting everybody together and getting input. So, and that'll help the outdoor center, with planning for the future, right? And doing the yearly passes and things. So,
We hope so.
okay. Yeah, that'll be good. All right. Well, thank you, Simon. That's great. Any more discussion? No? Okay. So other business, I'll just quickly mention that the mowing happened over on the south side of the Catamount, and Eric Blackie did a great job. Got, really got around, did a full day of mowing. So looks really good over there. And there were not too many surprises, which was good. It looks like it was pretty easy going. And Laura had the invasive work day. And there were, I think she said about 10 volunteers and scouts and a volunteer. And they were over near on Woods Trace side. So they got a lot of buckthorn and honeysuckle cut.
I think Laura said they brought their own chainsaws.
Yes, electric, electric chainsaws, which work great. And they were able to get a lot done. They paired people up with chainsaws and the buckthorn blaster and people lugging things away. And then there was the Green Mountain Audubon Society had a bird walk on the 22nd of October, and over 20 people showed up. And so that was great, and saw lots of birds, which was, and it was a beautiful day, I guess, that day. So they were really happy. And and I guess, John, if you have the Catamount Outdoor Family Center update.
Sure. We did pretty much wrap up our fall event season this past weekend with Rut Fest. which was a pretty incredible running event put on by the Richmond Ultra Running Trail organization. So some of the people ran over 100 miles over the 36 hours.
Oh,
Wow.
And Hans's son, Hans, how far did your son run? 36 miles?
Yeah, my 9-year-old ran 36 miles.
Wow.
I don't know what got into him.
Can't imagine.
So something was inspiring out there for those folks. We had an introductory hike for our fungi foray. It went really well. It sold out, and we had a bit of a waiting list. So we're gonna add that to our programming for the upcoming year. We're gonna do 2 of them actually, one in the summer and one in the fall now. So and hopefully have a food component at some point.
What did you find out there for mushrooms?
We found some puffball. I mean, in terms of edibles, we found puffballs, and what else did we find that was edible? We found a bunch of poisonous ones.
Amanitas.
We found a really cool range of the Amanita muscaria. So from the sort of egg-shaped, really young version to the fully grown version in a row. So like 6 or 7 of the different sizes. It was really cool to see that. I had never, you see it in pictures like on, online and stuff, but it was neat to line those up. We did find an Amanita verosa, which Alan asked me to take away. So her son would take it home and accidentally play with it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Put it in the refrigerator.
And let's see what else we finished up with our cyclocross and cyclocross, a big one. Both were great and are going to come back and hopefully be bigger and better next year. We have been reviewing the forestry work and talking with Ethan about potential adjusting some of the trees that might get cut to keep the trail character, personality, and definition maybe a bit better than it might be, depending on how we agree to that. And he was very receptive to our suggestions. We've marked a few of the ones that we were most concerned about, and are talking with him about that. This isn't just to say like we don't want any trees cut. It's like, well, this one's important. What about that one over there? Can we adjust so that we're still getting the same value, forestry project value out of it that we would, but are being less impactful on the trail experience. And so that the board is working on marking those trees, and then we're working with Ethan to talk about that. If anybody is interested at all, I'm happy to include folks on those walks and just to learn more about what we're.
Yeah, that would be great to know when you're going out, and
Yeah,
that's great that you're working together and talking about. And it's great he's doing it so early.
Well, when I started the conversation, I kind of I always feel bad about being like, hey, so you put all these marks on, can we not cut some of those? So, but he was like, this is perfect. This is exactly why we did it so early, and so he was really receptive, and I felt good about how that might progress. And he was happy to discuss, all of them. So.
Great. Yeah, keep us in the loop when you're going to go out next.
Sure, sounds great. And I don't know if we've talked about it much here, but we are planning on turning our lights back on. We have 2 loops that Jim put in quite a while ago that still work, and we've done some repairs to make it happen, and are working with Green Mountain Power to turn back on the upper loop. We have control of the lower loop now, and so we're hoping to staff Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays from 5 to 8 as they're on. If anybody is not familiar with the previous lighting, it was designed to be, I forget how Jim termed it, but it was like you were skiing from point of light to point of light, and not like a stadium lighting. It was meant more as a guide and not like I said, stadium lighting. So they're all LED lights at this point, so that the draw is quite small for all the loops, and they all point down, and then like we said, we're gonna have them on timer, so hopefully they would they won't impact anybody past 8 o'clock on those 3 nights. So does anybody have any questions about that?
I was out there today and noticed there's like zip ties on the boxes. That must be new.
Zip ties.
Because, yeah.
Wait, did you see the bubble gum and the duct tape too?
No, but I just noticed that. I said somebody must have looked at that box, because those ties weren't there before. Yeah, so
we're in the process of dialing everything back in, and Jim overbuilt the system. We got, once again, we got to thank Jim for doing a good job, and so it's in pretty good shape. So we are in the process. Sorry, go ahead.
What happened? So when Velco replaced the poles, they knocked out the power. Is that what happened?
No, apparently that didn't happen at all.
Oh, good. Okay.
There really wasn't any damage that they did. It was more that the power source from the pole had been, the meter had been taken away, so the upper loop was not connected to any power, and I'm not sure where the story came about Velco, but they didn't do anything.
Good for them.
No, I'm sorry. They did a very good job. And Jim pointed out, he's like, I don't think they did anything to the line, because they're usually very good about stuff, and they know. And so, we that was not part of the issue.
cool.
Moving on, we are planning for 2023 projects, especially with the sort of no gig rule going away in June, and there are grant applications that are coming due that we might like to apply for. How involved does this committee want to be on that? I'm happy to be wildly open with everybody and let everybody know what we're hoping to do, and when and where, and how we might fund it. So I'm unfamiliar with how that has gone in the past. So I just wanted to open up that discussion.
So what are some of the projects you're still in discussion of things that you're looking to do in 2023?
We have some general priorities. I mean, and some specific too. We are looking to redo and potentially extend the dual slalom course, which needs some work. The same thing with that sort of terrain area in general, that needs an upgrade. We're talking about, with the town, redoing several bridges on 3 rivers, but really that entire trail could use drainage work, and we'd like to consider that potentially we don't do bridge work, but we do culvert and ditch and drain work, so that it is, it stays as an earthen surface that we're riding on and skiing on, and so our goal is to drain the trails better, so that they work better in both the summer and the winter, because in the winter, wet trails are icy trails, and much use out of
True. Yeah.
at that point either. So that's another spot we're thinking about. We have the power line, which is we have a bit more freedom to plan a trail through there that we'd like to work in that area too. Thinking larger, we have some design work that we'd like to do for, a really friendly way up and down to the lookout, as sort of a grander too. So we have lots of ideas, and certainly lots of opportunities to fund things. So but we want to be clear about our partners and make sure that whatever we're thinking about, we're asking the right questions at the right time.
Great. All right. Sounds like you're also lots to do over there for sure.
Yeah.
Especially around trail.
So on sort of that same topic, we at some point are going to want to maintain the view at the lookout for sure, and potentially some other view spots, and that might, that's going to involve some level of cutting, and just want to plan for that with you guys so that we're not overcutting and we're not going.
That would probably involve bringing
Yeah.
Ethan in, I guess, I would think, for cutting down whole trees, or would you just be topping them?
I think that depends on the spot and the tree. I mean, we're happy to not cut something all the way down if we don't have to. We're not just out there to clear cut for sure. It's
Yeah, I think that would fall under the forest management plan.
okay.
Ethan, take a look at that.
And so we were talking a bit before about the trail repair costs post forestry. And on top of that discussion, I've also realized that we have an actual trail valuation on our balance sheet for the entire network. And those numbers both seemed really, really low to me. As somebody who has budgeted trails many, many times, it was surprising to me. So I don't want to come in with my hair on fire and be like, whoa, what's going on here? But I do want to be careful that that the repairs are done in a good way, and that we do value the trails at their proper value. So
I think Ethan's working with when the forest management is done with the equipment that's going to do less damage. It's the forwarder as opposed to the skidder. So
no doubt. I actually went out and walked with him and one of the potential foresters who has a lot of that equipment. We discussed a lot of the potential techniques that they might be using, and it was very impressive to hear what level of stuff that they were talking about. But I also know how heavy that stuff is, and there will be impacts, and they're going to be on trails.
Are you saying that in your experience you don't think 10,000 is enough to do the?
I don't know, and I'm not. I don't want to put down others. Budgetary. Planning on this at all, but given the amount of trail and the places that we're talking about, there's going to be significant impacts that are going to take some time and effort for us to go back. I think that a lot of it's going to come back really quickly, but not all of it, and there will be machine work that'll be required to fix some of it.
Okay.
I wonder, so the town is responsible with it. Usually when there's a forest management project, the logger will usually add that in, but this is a different situation where they're bidding on it or something. So the logger would not be required to.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. I know that we're obviously not paying them to do anything.
Right.
They're sort of doing out of the timber they harvest.
Right.
And then theoretically giving us some back to use or sell.
Yeah, and Ethan has been great about trying to plan this in a way that does reduce the impacts. So I'm not, like coming in and being like this, freaking out. He's done a really good job on that, and I do think that there are loggers out there that can do a light touch on this stuff, but they have big machines that are going to be turning around out there.
Right, and we're hoping this forwarder is a little less damaging to the land, yeah. So.
Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, Woods Trace out to the landing that they're talking about is a road, and it's a rock road, so
Mhm.
it's
Elko really did.
it's not gonna it's gonna take a lot of that traffic pretty well, but it's not gonna be unimpacted, and beyond that, it's not as quite it's not quite as built up, and then they're going to be off that in the woods and up on the the ridges where the the narrower hand-built trails are too. So anyway,
Good. Okay, well, and maybe if we can meet up with you and Ethan, and we can kind of maybe get caught up on some of that too.
sure.
See where he's at
He
with that.
has great maps that show where they're bringing everything out too, so that helps you sort of visualize where those impacts are going to be, and
Oh, nice.
how long they might be on any individual trail section.
Great, sounds good.
And, John, I'm trying to wear my CCF committee hat.
Yes.
Not my cat outdoor family. So is there, if it's more than 10,000, like, so we went around this with Melinda when I was wearing my cat outdoor family center hat. And like, well, how much damages are going to be? Well, I don't know. Well, how much does it cost to fix a foot of trail? Well, I don't know. There were so many variables, it was like impossible to nail down a number, and it's $10,000 number. It was like, well, we couldn't come up with something better. So I guess my question now wearing the CCF hat is, do you think you can get a number that we should be planning? I mean, have you been able to nail down those variables better with your experience as a trail builder? We didn't have that. Like Melinda and I were on the phone trying to call trail builders, like, what do you think? I don't know.
I mean, I think that you're absolutely right that some of the variables are really hard to nail down, but I do think that we can do estimates on repair work, hours of machine work that this many feet of trail will require, even on Woods Trace. So what's Wood Trace? What's that one piece going to take? And then if the routes out are going to impact moose poop especially bad, that's 1,000 feet of trail. How long is that going to take? And I think we can get at least a number that we feel more comfortable with. 10,000, it just knowing how much a foot of trail takes these days, especially at the road level, where we're talking about in some of these places, it doesn't get very far. So.
And the trails will be put back to the condition they are in now, or when the logging starts. So they'll have to kind of document what the trails look like at the time just before logging.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hard one to say, because you're taking a whole bunch of trees out. So the trail, it's a balancing act a little bit about how it's left, because it's going to be different. When you say it's going to be how it was, that's not sort of the standard, I guess, that it's.
Right, they need to be usable.
Right. Yeah.
It's more.
And I think
Like,
we-
is it generally as passable as it was? Is maybe a better way of thinking about it.
I think that's very interesting. Thank you for raising that early, John.
Yeah.
And I feel badly without just being like, and this is the number, but I will work on that and try to break it up into pieces so that it does make sense, so that it's not just me being like, well, I think it's going to be 40,000, because that doesn't help either. it's just me trying to grab it at a higher number rather than being like, I think because of this, it will be this. So I will.
think it sounds like Ethan has a very good idea of, you know, where the lumber is that they're going to be pulling out, how they're going to be pulling it out, where it's going to be. So he, you know, with you working with him, you can identify areas of trails, because he's not going to be dragging the lumber, the timber down the trails. He's going to be, you know, all of it. I mean, there might be some spots where he has to, but it's not like he's going to use the trails as his logging roads. I think there's going to be.
Well, the hardened roads will be the logging roads. And in some cases, the hand-built stuff that are off of those will be the drag spots. So
Maybe it would be a good idea to have Ethan come to one of our meetings at some point and just maybe talk. I've never seen this map. I you know, where the log landing is going to be and where the trees are going to, where he's marking, and he's still in the process of marking trees. So, yeah, it might be worthwhile to have him come and explain, you know,
Sure.
just to,
no, I expect him to be here.
yeah. And we have a whole year. I mean, not a whole year, but we have, you know, till August of 2023.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, if it's going to cost $40,000, we need to figure out where we can get our money from ASAP.
So we have, you know, the $10,000 is from the town in the capital improvement. And then there's also the stewardship fund with $10,000 set aside, or 20,000 for, you know, disaster. So that, I guess, maybe was, you know, if it was that bad, but I don't think it would be.
That's not how we're going to brand the forestry
No.
project.
That's right.
It's a major success.
But I really do think it's a great idea to have Ethan come and, you know, at least explain to us, you know, where are the points on the trail system that might be impacted, and, you know, because right now I have no idea, you know, I just have been out there to see where he's marked trees, but.
Right.
All right, so let's-
That map and the walk the other day with him and the other forester were both really helpful for me, for sure.
Great, oh, good. All right, so any other updates from the outdoor center?
Nothing I can think of right now.
Okay. And any other topics that folks want to, any other business? Okay, and I forgot to, what is the next date? The next
December the 8th.
December 8th. Okay,
Yeah.
so next meeting will be December 8th. 5:30, probably same thing, Zoom or a hybrid here, Zoom. Okay, and anything else any folks want to talk about before we
No.
adjourn? All right, so it is 6:53 and I adjourn the meeting.
All right. Good night,
Good night,
everybody.
everyone.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you next month.
All right.
Thank you, bye-bye.